Thanks as always to our partner, Fortified Health Security. No matter where you're at in your cybersecurity journey, Fortified can help you improve your cybersecurity posture through their 24/7 threat defense services or advisory services delivered through Central Command, a first of its kind platform that simplifies cybersecurity management and provides the visibility you need to mature your program. Learn more at fortifiedhealthsecurity.com. I'm Drex DeFord, President of Cyber and Risk here at This Week Health and the 229 Project, where we're transforming healthcare one connection at a time. Welcome to this solution showcase, where we spotlight solutions that work. Let's see what's protecting patients and families today. Hey everyone, I'm Drex DeFord, a longtime recovering healthcare CIO, now the cybersecurity and risk leader at This Week Health, and I'll be your host for today's solution showcase. We always start off by saying thank you. Thanks to the folks for listening today. We appreciate your time. We know you're super busy, and so we're really happy that you're here. I think today is going to be a really fun and really interesting solution showcase. I've gotten to know these folks a little bit, and it could be a good time. It's an episode where we're going to dive into cybersecurity. And if you're working in the security team or leading the security team or anyone else in the health system, in reality, you're all part of the security team in your health system, this will be a great episode for you. We've lined up for this really great conversation, 3 awesome cybersecurity leaders who have pragmatic solutions to some really tough problems. So get ready to take some notes because this will be a good one. Preston and Spencer are here with me. I'll introduce them in just a minute. We're also joined by Will Houston from MDI Hospital. Will leads the network and security team at MDI. And Will, we're glad you're here. And the best place to start is with introduction. So Will, tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at MDI Hospital.
Awesome. Thank you, Drex, for having me on, and thank you, Fortified, for inviting me. My name is Will Houston. I'm the network security manager at Mount Desert Island Hospital. I have been in this role for about 12 years. It feels like 40. We are a small 25-bed critical access hospital located in Bar Harbor, Maine, which brings together some very interesting things. Because we are at Acadia National Park, we are the second most visited national park in the country. We see upwards of 4.25 million people. So in the middle of the winter, you can bowl down Main Street, but in the middle of the summer, you cannot walk down Main Street. So we see a pretty good influx of people, which makes us kind of one of the biggest small little hospitals I've ever had to work with.
We also have Preston Duren with us. He's the VP of Threat Services at Fortified Health Security. Preston, you've been in the InfoSec world for a really long time now. Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Drex. So my name is Preston Duren. I am the Vice President of Threat Services here at Fortified Health Security. I've spent a little over 15 years doing healthcare cybersecurity specifically, worked in some of the largest health systems in the U.S., mostly on the provider space, really building up programs, maturing programs, helped start a threat team at one of the large, 3-letter healthcare companies. And, then found my way over to Fortified, which worked out perfectly because this is all we do. So happy to be here. The things that pop under me are things like your traditional SOC, your threat defense, right? Your SIEM, XDR, along with incident response, penetration testing, BTM, stuff like that. So happy to be here. Excited for a good conversation.
Preston's been on the podcast before too. So if you look back at some of the historical stuff with Preston and I, you'll get some other really good insights into some of the work that he does and some of the work he does at Fortified. Last but not least, Spencer Bales, the VP of Product at Fortified. Say hi and give us a quick overview of your background, Spencer.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Drex. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. My background was in IT engineering in the military as well. My joke is always, it's the one thing in life I'm really good at, right, is computers. So I spent the last 15 plus years working in IT and cybersecurity across, a mix of industries from manufacturing and the military to healthcare, cybersecurity. Before joining Fortified, I worked at NetHost, which is a big, very large EHR software and hosting company. These days, as you said, I'm the VP of Product at Fortified Health Security, where I get the joy of building and kind of shaping the solutions and the Central Command platform that Fortified offers and that we use to help organizations, increase their cybersecurity.
That's great. We're going to talk, I think, a lot about Central Command today, but Will, I want to start with you. In preparation for this, we chatted about your arrival at MDI Hospital and the work that you've done there And I'm wondering if you can kind of do a little replay of that. And in particular, tell us about this whole journey that kind of started with Fortified. And one of the things I want you to talk about is this. You mentioned something about the terrible summer. So I asked you a lot of questions there, kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No. So I actually am on my, because it's in cyber, I refer to it as my second term. This is my second time with Mount Desert Island Hospital. When I came back, I was purely in the position of security, and it was a lot. 125-year-old organization that had policies that were probably 125 years old that needed to be updated. But along that journey, we started with the basics, governance. We really took our organization from a checkbox, hey, let's make sure that we're doing this, to maturing our program to actually instituting a lot of things that were checkboxed. In that, we had met with Fortified when we had just gone live with Cerner, which is now Oracle Health. So the bad summer, we were in transition. We had just signed contracts and we're moving to the EDR solution with SentinelOne. We had about 80% of our environment covered. And we had our first introductory call with the incident response team. Like everything fun in IT security, on May the 4th, which should be an IT holiday, we had some alerts that came in at 5 o'clock in the morning. Fortified had sent some alerts to let us know that there had been escalation of privileges. By 6 o'clock in the morning, we had already reached out to the Fortified SOC, but because I was in transition, I did not have full SentinelOne coverage. Because I was in transition, I also had 3 SIMs. So aggregating that data, trying to figure out what my problem was, eradicate the problem, and also try to fit breakfast in was quite a day. Honestly, our first call was to the SOC that started to get the escalation going. I got to know Javon in the incident response team by fire. We spent weeks. So I went from talking to the incident response team once to talking to the incident response team every day for 3 weeks, and sometimes late at night, sometimes 12 o'clock at night when we saw some incidents going on. And that May the 4th was the beginning of a very long, arduous summer that we had up here.
Kudos to MDI. Really 2 things stand out to me. One, everybody says they have executive involvement, executive backing. They don't know what it's like. Like MDI, their CEO will watch this. I guarantee it. She is a partner that you wish you had at a C-level at a hospital. She's involved. We've done stuff with her before. When you talk about partnership, it's not just lip service. I mean, she is in it, right? And when will you know that is because most health organizations that experience something like this, there's no way that they're allowed to talk about it publicly. It's hard to find people that actually talk about it. And Will, to his credit and his team, is they're like, no, we need to share our story with people so that other people understand what to expect and what this feels like, and that there is another side of this. There is, and that means a lot to the community, right? I mean, we all grew up in healthcare, and it's not often you see somebody like Will and an organization like that with the partnership that they have and the leadership that Will gives and the CEO gives.
So you're in the process of deploying your EDR. You're not fully deployed. You're still sorting issues with the SIM. You've signed up with Fortified. Star Wars Day happens and the alarms start going off and you engage the Fortified. Preston, what's it look like from your side of the house? What's going on over there?
Yeah. So, I mean, from our side, what we saw there is really exactly what we trained for, right? So when I start firing, within minutes, our SOC's got eyes on it, but it wasn't just us having eyes on it, right? It wasn't just us escalating. It's understanding the context, right? And I think that's really important, right? So, we got this context. We're not just looking at one alert. We're looking at telemetry and threat intel and all these things to kind of help tell this story and paint this picture to then present that to Will. It's kind of worst case scenario, right? So you always got to kind of make risk decisions on okay, what's the chances that during a transition period, right? Like, and you know that in the back of your mind, that's an opportunity, but you're like, nah, that's such a small use case. So likelihood. Well, then it happens, right? And then from the partner perspective, he's right. We don't have all the data, right? So we're trying to infer pieces of data. We're looking at what we do have against threat intelligence. And, I remember, the kind of the tone. And as we escalated that, it wasn't really a tone of panic, right? It was more like, hey, we've got something here. And, you know, from a cybersecurity guy's perspective, it's one of those things that, you look at so many false positives, right? And when something does happen, you say, you got to kind of remind yourself, all right, let's stay calm. We know what to do. We've done this before. Let's put the playbook in action, right? Let's call in the troops. We got war room, escalate to the client, and kind of take it from there. So that's kind of what, from our side on the back end, what we were doing.
I feel like sometimes too, though, when you get into this, not having all the information really turns out to kind of be par for the course, right? It's not never set up perfectly. The EDR is never fully deployed. Even when the EDR is deployed, there's tons of stuff that won't hold the client, won't hold the agent. And so you're inferring a lot. It's why it's important that you have people who have like experience looking at these kind of issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And in reality, you don't always need all the pieces of the puzzle, right? The playbook is the playbook. Where having all the pieces of the puzzle comes into play is like, how far can we remediate, right? But I only need a little piece of the puzzle to understand what's going on. And it's like, once we identify that, it's like, all right, playbook in action, let's go. Right. So, I think we, would have loved to have everything, but give me something and I'll work.
This was all part of your central command setup, right? Will, you have, when we talked earlier, you were sort of talking about getting started with Fortified.
I mean, Central Command we were still in Sentinel-1. We had not fully engaged in anything. I could log on to the Sentinel-1 dashboard and could not access anything else. Now, and the other thing I'm gonna say, and to everybody's awesomeness, we shut down 170 accounts before 7:00 in the morning. We were able to identify where the threat actor was emanating, and then we overkilled. And it was that guidance. Preston and the team, they go through this all the time. I'm going through this once and only once. So being able to kind of rely on that expertise.
To Will's team's credit, they jumped right into this, right? So for him to say, like, we do it all the time and this is the first time, I mean, the response, he talks about, disabling all these accounts before 7 a.m., right? I mean, that's impressive. And
Do that.
And the best part about it is, there was no being defensive. There was no ego involved in this. It was just a partnership. It's like, hey, you have limited information, we have limited information, but we're here. Like, let's go. Right. And so it was instant. Right. And I think that partnership and that ability to understand where we are and where we need to be, whatever it takes to get there, let's get there. Right. So a lot of credits to Will and his team.
I mean, it's interesting. We talk about this all the time. Cybersecurity is a team sport, but that's kind of the perfect example of the team sport coming together. Spencer, I want to shift to you because I want to ask the question about Central Command. Tell me about Central Command, Fortified Central Command, and what it is and how it works and what it does. And, just kind of give me lay of the land.
So a few years ago, we, as we talked to our clients, we work with them on all these different managed services. One of the resounding things we kept hearing was, we've got all these services with Fortified. You guys have a lot of this data on us, but we don't have any way to bring all that together, right? We're logging into all these different portals for these different services. We need a way to see all of this in one place and be able to see how we compare to people to other organizations in the ecosystem and things like that. And so Central Command was born out of that idea. It's our, cybersecurity platform that brings all of our kind of services and data and insights all into one place. So for us and for our clients, they have kind of one place to go to consume anything that they may need from us on the Fortified side as we're partnering with them on these different managed services. So, the goal for us is that we help you kind of prioritize what matters most and streamline how you track and address things like escalation and vulnerabilities, or your risk assessment. When you're going through a risk assessment with us, that whole process takes place in there. So the goal really is that it becomes like the operational hub that kind of powers how we deliver all of our managed services. So we've got modules for all of our technology-enabled managed services. our advisory services as well, things like risk assessments, third-party risk management, stuff like that. So we've been continuing to iterate on it, but Will's been a big part of helping us kind of give feedback. He's used the platform a lot over his duration with us. And so we're appreciative of the feedback that he kind of shares with us to help us build a platform that clients want to use. Like, we don't want to just build something that there's some stuff Preston and I always joke about when we were designing a lot of the features, and there's stuff that like we would like, this is so cool. And then we'd show it to the clients, and sometimes they're like, that's not that cool. And then we would be like, this is super basic. And then we put it out there and clients would be like, that's what we need. And we're like, okay, well, but it's been a fun project to work on as we've kind of iterated on it over the years.
I think the iteration is kind of the key to the operation. One of those things that I wanted to ask about, Will, was mentioned the SOS button at one point. Can you tell me about that?
I have to step you back just a little bit. One of the basic things that they forgot was emojis. So they took my feedback of I can't put a smiley face to now I can put a smiley face in the chat. It's that type of relationship that goes along.
Just for you, Will, you sent that
That's right.
in, and we sent it straight to the developers.
You got to prioritize the important stuff, and
They
emojis.
do.
You know, it's like, oh, we forget.
Yeah, absolutely. That has to definitely be one of the ones. Yeah. So tell me about that SOS button. You mentioned it. You were mentioning it when we talked earlier, and kind of want to hear that story.
Okay, so the SOS button, it exists within the platform. The work-life balance is kind of where it comes in. So I can put this thing on my phone. I can see that I have an escalation, and I can react to it from my phone. And the one thing that we're talking about a lot in cybersecurity is burnout. So imagine, if you will, it's 9 o'clock at night. I have a network administrator who receives kind of a weird alert. Well, I happen to not be home. I did get on my phone and I click the SOS button. It's not an emergency. The sky is not falling, but I need to make sure that it's not. So I simply text, hey, can you take a look at this vulnerability? Somebody jumps on immediately. Hey, Will, how are you? Thank you for the smiley face. And then they reply and they start to go to work. So here I am. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm on my cell phone. I'm not nowhere near my computer. And I'm allowed to communicate with a SOC 2 or a SOC level technician to verify a vulnerability. It turned out to be a false positive, but again, no waiting, no stress. Myself and my colleagues have all been through it. So anything that you can do that allows me to have the ability to, I don't know, go to dinner with my wife and still kind of have that protection, it matters. And
It's interesting. No call tree or no bot you had to work through. You just, that's great.
Yeah, that was huge when we built it. You know, it's so interesting because we didn't initially build that mobile functionality for that specific use case. But, you know, we're like, well, we want people to be able to contact the SOC and be able to get escalations on their phone. And what we weren't thinking at the time was we want to correct some of that work-life balance or help them keep some of that work-life balance. It was just, well, everything's got a mobile app. We got to have a mobile app, and we want to get things out of email a little bit. But we heard from folks like you and many other clients that said, hey, you know, one kind of tertiary benefit of this has been that, like, after hours, I'm not living in my inbox, because they're like, what would happen before is I'd kind of constantly be checking, looking for an escalation or an alert. And then, you know, pretty soon you start scrolling and it's been 20 minutes and you're like, you went to check for 5 seconds and you look up and you've been in there for an hour scrolling through your email. And, you know, clients are like, we're able to see it. We know that if we get an escalation, it's going to pop up on that lock screen, and like, we're going to be able to address it and then go back to dinner with the wife.
It's stress. And if you can alleviate just a little bit of it, you know, it goes a long way. I mean, it really does. I mean, I sleep with my cell phone by my bed. My boss knows this and will text me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And my wife is like, just don't sleep with the phone next to your bed. And I'm like, the data breach happened at 5:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
My phone will forever be beside my bed. But just rolling over and being like, hey, Preston, it's your favorite vegan, and sending him a text versus, you know, setting a 5-alarm fire, it's a big deal. I mean, it really is. It helps me as a client, but it also helps you guys, because you know you're not having to triage 80% of the phone calls that probably come in.
Yeah. I want to ask too, well, you said you're in the middle of your risk assessment right now. So you're using Central Command for a bunch of other stuff. You said you were uploading documents, but give me some other examples of how you're using Central Command to better manage and document your security practices.
We're a big fan of succession planning. There's not a whole lot of security professionals up in Down East Maine, if you will. So for me to be able to centralize and get all of my documentation in one location, that's a big deal. If something were to happen to me, being able to know that the hospital and the organization is still going to have everything it needs means a lot. So yeah, I am moving a lot of our information and infrastructure into Command Central. Incident response is coming. We use the Escalation IQ. Unfortunately for me, everything comes in on a Saturday or a Sunday. Wow, I got to think of all the things I've got. I got MDR, XDR. I've got IoT that I do with them. So the partner that they've chosen, I think it's Clarion, I think might be their name du jour, has been a phenomenal addition to our tool set. It's been amazing. And I can access that out of Central Command. All of my vulnerabilities are in Central Command. My risk registry is in Central Command. And then I've got the 108 questions being asked by us for NISTs. Yeah. So we are living in it and we are building it to be our security repository. As I look at the risk registry, I have looked at other compliance softwares before, and it's going to be the last one we're going to load all this data into. It gives Fortified the extra information that they need to help me in a bad day.
So how are other customers using Central Command? What other things are they doing with it?
Just to touch on what Will said, I mean, it's huge for us too, because the more services that we are partnering with clients on, the more information we have about them. So we have this concept on the threat services side with Preston's team when they're creating escalations called just-in-time information. And so it's like when they go to create an escalation, we try to surface to them relevant information about that client and other services they may have or other details about that client, historical knowledge we have about them. So when they're looking at something and they're doing an investigation and deciding, hey, does this need to get escalated or not? They've got a bunch of context. And the more services we have, the more data and information we know about to kind of provide that context. And we're working to kind of bring that throughout the organization. So things like as part of the RA and now as just part of the platform, we kind of document what other technologies you may use. So if the Threat Defense Center sees an alert on something, we can start to look and go, oh, we can confirm they do use that technology for sure. So this alert maybe was going to be a medium is now a high because we've confirmed that you do use that piece of software. And we're not asking you, do you use this? If so, let's take action. We know you use it. And so that's what's helpful for us. But I mean, as far as the platform, we've got, Escalation IQ is a big part of that. We reimagined that experience. Historically, a lot of that just comes through emails and that you can't really control how or when or the way you consume those things.
Hey, Spencer, and one of the things that I will tell you has been amazing with the Escalation IQ is the trajectory. Being able to see how the threat came in, where it went, because really, again, this is my environment. I should know it pretty well. I can take a quick glance from my cell phone and say, oh, this isn't a big deal, or excuse me, honey, I have to step out, which has been amazing for us.
That's a big module that we use a lot. I mean, reimagine that experience to how we can tell a better story. That's Preston's, one of his kind of like North Stars for the Threat Defense Center is like, I'm sorry to steal your line, Preston, but like, we're not alert forwarders, we're storytellers, right? We're here to figure out what happened and tell you what happened and then tell you what you should do to remediate it now and what resilience recommendations you can get to help stop it from happening again. And so powering all of that into Central Command and in the mobile app is key. And then we've got a lot of other services. We're releasing our IR module right now for our incident response program that we're really excited about, using that to help, document and move that journey forward from an incident response perspective. And we've got a third-party risk management module as well. That's obviously a very hot topic right now across the industry, is Like, what do we do with all of this vendor risk? And what can we do now that we've identified that vendor risk? How do we track that now we know, right? So before we potentially didn't know there was a risk, now we know there's a risk, and what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to track that kind of through the execution phase of that? And so we built a purpose-built module inside of Central Command for that as well, to help with the actual process of like, where are all of our assessments in their life cycle and what came out of them, and how can we respond to those and be able to, kind of help remediate that based on the recommendations that Fortified is providing as a part of that service. And so there's a lot of capabilities. I think we're up to like 12 modules now inside the platform across all of our different services.
You mentioned, about the value of having multiple services. I mean, I want to give a tactical example, right? Because it's easy to say, well, the more services you have with us, the more money you spend with us, the better it is for you, right? I mean, like, that's, every MSSP has one thing in common. We're all for-profit companies. But here's a tactical example, right? So a new vulnerability comes out, a new WannaCry, right? Insert your technology, some bad vulnerability here. During the risk assessment process, we ask for certain information about their technology stack, right? So new vulnerability comes out, my analysts are going to go, they're going to query the data lake. They're going to say, okay, who's the client that has Citrix, right? So no new Citrix vulnerability came out, right? So we're going to get that information. Now we drilled this list from 100 down to, for Citrix it'd be a lot, but say some other technology down to 10 clients, right? They might go look at their vulnerability management part of Central Command and say, like, are we seeing those kind of assets? Then make a look at the risk assessment and say, how do they score from a NIST perspective on their vulnerability management program? Do they have some of it, but they're not really patching all that good because it's hard to patch in healthcare? Let's say they got a, critical risk there, right? So now they just jumped up in the list, right? So my dedicated threat hunters are then looking at that kind of information. That's not just SOC stuff. Like, what SOC looks at a risk assessment for information, for intel, right? To know how to prioritize hunts. That's what we can do from a back end Fortified with this kind of data, is it really lets us prioritize certain things and just gives us a full picture so that we can go hunt.
It feels like, Will, I heard you say this. I've heard other customers kind of say this too. The sock in the pocket idea, like you've got a sock in your pocket on your phone. All this information is there. Fortified, you guys are using it across multiple customers to look for patterns and trends and things that are happening to help keep your customers ahead of the game. Because a lot of this is, catch it and kill it. But a lot of it is just, you can see it coming. You can intercept the pass before anything ever happens. So tell me a little bit more about the sock in the pocket concept and the work you've done there. Preston, I'll ask you to start.
Yeah. So again, I think that having access to real people, real analysts that are looking at your data 24/7, right? We all have our phones on us, right? Being able to pull up a mobile app, and to Spencer's credit, one thing I'll just steal his line is what we didn't do is create a phone version of the web page, right? That's not what we wanted. We said, okay, this is for mobile. What do you need in mobile, right? Here's again, tactical example. On the web page, if you log in, one of the things we do if it's a high escalation is we call, right? And we put call notes in. If you're on the web page, it's kind of towards, the middle to the bottom. If you're on your phone, it's the first thing you see. I need to know if I'm out to dinner with my wife, can I put my phone back in my pocket because Spencer's handling it or whatever? So like we did things like that. So we're talking about sock in your pocket. It's access to information and people that have the context and the telemetry of the situation. You have immediate access to them.
Here's another thing that I didn't mean to really sort of save this punchline to the end, but Fortified only focuses on healthcare. This is another really interesting and unique aspect of the company and the product.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we have always been focused on healthcare. We don't just dabble in healthcare, right? The reason Fortified was started in 2009 is because, we saw a gap in healthcare, and, you hear this term, healthcare is 10 years behind, right? And when you hear that, it in certain ways that can kind of be true, but I think that the important part is the why. And it's not because of lack of caring, because I would argue that there's more care in the healthcare than a lot of other spaces because of what they risk, right? You're talking about human lives. We don't do this for the doctors and nurses. We do this for the patients in the communities that our clients serve, because one of our clients is the hospital I was born in. is the hospital my daughter was born in. I went to them and said, trust me, you don't want anybody else protecting this data than me because I've got real skin in this game. Right. So I mean,
Right.
all we do is healthcare, and we try to meet them where they are, whether it's, IOMT with Clarity, used to be Medigate, understanding the business of healthcare, understanding what PACS outages are, or even what PACS is. Right. When I hear Pyxis, I got a picture in my head of the beige
know what that
cabinet.
is. Yeah.
Right. Everything in a hospital is not just a node and an IP address. And if you don't understand how these things enable patient care and how they should and shouldn't communicate, and honestly, how poorly some of the software is written from a legacy perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like understanding that lets us remediate creatively. It cannot be a shoot first and ask questions later, right? You have people that you have to treat patients, right? So that's really the mindset that we bring, is because we grew up in healthcare.
This is kind of my little thing to go with what Preston said. My entire family comes back to MDI Hospital. So when I was preparing to send out those letters, I sent out 32,000 breach notifications, and we covered 32,000 people with credit monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. I sent out 3 letters that had a pretty lasting effect, and that was to my wife and my 2 kids. And both my kids are under the age of 18. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. When you're going through a spreadsheet and you come across those names, it forces you to pause. These aren't just MRNs. These aren't just first names, last names. These are people in our community, people that, for where I am, fuel assistance is a big deal. If their credit is gone, they're freezing this winter. That has a huge impact. My wife is a provider. She does things in the community. She makes people feel better. I don't. But what I do is I make sure that when you go to that hospital, it's open. Because I can't see the site of blood. I can't even really identify where my femur is. But I will do everything I can to make sure that hospital is open, and pretty much in just about any situation. And I think that's something that maybe we lose in cyber, is we chase ones and zeros, and sometimes we forget that
A mission.
Yeah. And mission, that is exactly it.
Yeah, you have to remember that you can trace the thread from the port on the firewall to the patient in the bed.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you going, is it's not just ones and zeros, it's real people.
Love that. Hey,
The
Will,
one thing
we
is-
could go on forever. I'm going to give you the last word here. What's your best advice for hospitals and small teams that are facing off against some of the adversaries that we're seeing today?
Take a day off, breathe, and find a good partner. I mean, you cannot do this alone. You can't. I mean, I'm coming to you, there's 650 people at my hospital, and there are 2 of us in security. In addition to security, we do everything else. And I know that we are not alone in doing that. Fortified for us has been excellent. We do choose them because they only focus on healthcare. If I were to say I have an XP machine, we all smile and laugh because we all have XP machines in a hospital. A bank finds that intolerable. For us, I have to support nuclear med. So I think if you can find a partner that can help you mature your program and protect you and be there for a bad day, grab them and growl. Don't let go of them. Then just get as much information from them as you can. We did not have a very exciting summer, which is a great thing for me.
Thanks to everyone for joining us today. It was really great to see all 3 of you. And thanks again to Fortified Health for sponsoring today's Solution Showcase. I'm Drex DeFord from This Week Health and the 229 Project. And as always, thank you, the listener, for being here. We really appreciate that. You want to know more about what we're doing and where we'll be, go to thisweekhealth.com/subscribe. We'll keep you posted on the webinars and podcasts and city tour dinners and summits and the new City Staff Roundtable, all those schedules as we travel the U.S., transforming healthcare one connection at a time. Thanks again for listening. It's healthcare. It's cybersecurity. Stay a little paranoid, and I'll see you around campus.